Legend doesn't even go there for my big question guest tonight. We need a bigger word than legend. Sir Geoff Hurst MBE began his football career with West Ham United, where he scored, wait for it, 242 goals in his 500 first-team appearances. That makes Harry Kane look positively sluggish. There he won the FA Cup in 1964 and the European Cup Winners' Cup in 1965. He was sold to Stoke City in 1972 for a princely £80,000, which, by the way, was a hell of a lot of money in those days. After 3 seasons with Stoke, he finished his Football League career with West Bromwich Albion in 1976. There followed a stint in management, including at Telford United and at Chelsea. Notwithstanding a brilliant club career, he's surely best known for his contribution to the England national team and that extraordinary hat-trick at the 1966 World Cup final against West Germany. Sir Geoff became the first and only man to score a hat-trick in a World Cup final, a feat that has not been matched since. So he's done a bit with his life. Sir Geoff Hurst MBE, welcome to GB News.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm very well, Sir Geoff. Brilliant to have you on the programme. Do you ever tire, Sir Geoff, of hearing those statistics?
No. Can you read those all out again, please? I didn't quite get them.
In fact, we've had a T-shirt. We're going to get a T-shirt made, and I'll wear it.
Not for a second. It's such a big day in my team's life and the country's lives, and so not for 1 second do I get fed up hearing the fantastic stories of people you bump into. I met a guy last week's story. Met a guy who there were very few televisions in those days. He had a TV in his green grocery shop, and they didn't want anybody to come in. They'd have to serve, and he vanished. They had so many people, didn't have enough chairs, and he sat on a bag of potatoes watching the World Cup final. And they didn't want anybody coming in to buy anything because they didn't want to be interrupted. That's the latest story.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like a pop star. That achievement, it's not like following up from number one. It's like 100 number ones. So how did you actually follow that? I mean, was it ever an albatross around your neck, especially as a player? I mean, those games after that extraordinary final, were they difficult? Was the pressure considerable?
Not for 1 second. It was never been a noose around my neck. It's been great to be part of a great day and great memories. And I talk about my teammates. It was fantastic to be involved with them all those years. And so, not for a second. It's just been a great part of your life. I've been asked that question quite a few times, but not for 1 second.
Can you remember that? Who were you playing with in 1966? Which was your club at that point, Sir Geoff? It was West Ham.
I was at West Ham then. Yeah, West Ham.
Can you remember your first?
In '72, yes.
Can you remember your first game for the Hammers after the World Cup final?
Amazingly, that came up only this week. Somebody spotted it on a video or YouTube, wherever they get these things from. Yeah. And we played, and they showed the video of us, Martin, Bobby and myself, holding a trophy, going round the ground onto the pitch with the trophy before playing the first league game against Chelsea. But straight back to earth, we lost the first opening game of that league season, 2-1 to Chelsea. So back down, that was quite interesting. And it only came up this week. Somebody reminded me. And Kenneth Wolstenholme, the great commentator, he commentated on the game.
Back to reality. And were you on the score sheet? Was that your goal at least?
I don't think so. Obviously, when you scored, as you said, 242 goals, you don't remember all of them. You remember quite a lot, but some things you don't remember. I just remember losing on the day after three of us walking out on the pitch celebrating winning the World Cup.
Yeah, well, I
don't think
I think you had a little bit of credit in the bank at that point, Sir Geoff. So where did it all start? I mean, can you remember the first time you kicked a ball?
Well, yes, I grew up. My father was an ex-pro, played up in the north. I was brought up there, and he taught me a lot about kicking with my left foot in the garden in the early years. So I've got a picture of me with one of my neighbours who was played in my team called John Parry in the back garden wearing our school strip back 6 or 7 years of age. So you just grew up, as many of us did, just playing football in the streets, in the road. Your mother saying, when it got dark, get back in, or you got holes in your shoes now. Get back in, and they're the early days and early memories. But I think the important thing, my father being an ex-player, many years he taught me to kick with my left foot as well. And it's interesting that in the final, of course, I scored what people call the perfect hat trick: one right, one left, and one header, of course.
Yes, indeed, it's truly remarkable. And did you show like competitive spirit as well? Were you naturally a competitive child, Sir Geoff?
Yes, I think that's part of you. I think you have to be competitive from a youngest age to want to be successful. Even when you start playing, in the streets or in the playground or playing for your school teams, you want to be successful. You want to win. Not to an extent at that age when you want to be desperate to win, and it's heartbreaking if you lose. But there has to be an element of competitiveness in you if you want to, and certainly when you involve with a club, you want to be successful. You want to train hard and play hard, and be successful in getting into the first team, and then proving your career is successful.
And you're very much a happy Hammer, born and bred. I think you entered West Ham as an apprentice about 15 years of age.
That's right. I wasn't necessarily what a lot of young players leaving school thinking I've got to be a footballer. I must go into football. I wasn't too bad academically. I wasn't a genius, so I wasn't necessarily going into football. But a friend of my father, completely unbeknownst to me, his name was Jock Redfern. He wrote my first interview. He wrote to West Ham and Arsenal for a trial. West Ham replied first, and then they gave me a trial and took me on. They saw something in me, and that was my first job interview of leaving school. And of course, Arsenal replied a little bit later, but there wasn't any difference for me at that age between West Ham and an Arsenal anyway. I was just pleased to have an opportunity to go on the ground staff at the club.
And was it obvious from the start, Sir Geoff, that you were a striker, that you were a goal machine?
Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. As a schoolboy, I was a centre-half, and West Ham I moved up to a midfield player. And what happened to me, and many people in the game know this story, I was messing about, and I use the term messing about those days, between cricket and football. And undecided, not really decided one way or the other, but somebody should have told me you've got to pick one of them, because it was an end of an era when you couldn't do both. And today, both sports are 100%. But it was the beginning of the end where you couldn't do the two. I was still messing about, playing cricket till September, but West Ham have been training from July. So I'm missing 3 or 4 months of the season. Not fit, in the reserves. Played in the reserves against Shrewsbury in about September 62. Expecting to get told off by Ron Greenwood when he came over to me on the training ground at Chapel Heath. And he said, we just sold a front player to Brentford, I think. We're playing against Liverpool tonight, and I want to try you up front. And I hadn't kicked a ball up front as a front player until I was 20 years of age, completely out of position. But we remember the game, of course, as you remember the big moments in your life. We beat Liverpool 1-0. A winger called Tony Scott scored the goal. I came off the pitch, and I always say my shorts are like they've been dipped in water because I was still unfit from playing cricket since July. Amazing. With my fat bottom. I use the word bottom. But from a standing start in a new position, I played 27 games that season, 62 3-season, and scored 14 goals. If I, did that today, you'd be worth 100 million. And that was my. But from that point, my career and life just took off like a rocket. 63, I went to America, playing some friendlies for West Ham. Top goal scorer, I think 10 in 9 games, playing against some world teams. Came back, we won the Cup in 63, 64, as you said. 65, we won the Cup Winners' Cup. Only the second time a club had won a European trophy. A fantastic time for the Hammers. And of course, in 66, three of West Ham's players, the captain and the 2 goal scorers, played for England. And I don't think any club, England will win the World Cup in. Got a great chance of doing it. Whether a club will supply the captain and the 2 goal scorers will be a very, very difficult thing to beat.
Hard to imagine, and it's a great legacy for West Ham, which obviously has an amazing history. What about that proficiency you have in front of goal? I mean, clearly you've got remarkable skill in your feet, and you had remarkable skill. But how much of it, Sir Geoff, is the psychology of the striker? calm under pressure, that when that ball lands at your feet, that you can put it away when others will, kick it over the goalpost?
Well, there's a bit of thought and psychology, to use your word, in when you play. I always looked at the players I was playing against, for example, what type of player they were, and look what they had, what strengths and weaknesses. So if a guy wasn't good in the air, particularly a smaller guy, you get the ball to be played far post in the air. He was good on the deck, you'd want to be far post. So I analysed the guy in the World Cup final much the same. So I just think that you think about that. But what I was good at, even for a young boy as a defender and a midfield player, I was very good at, talking back about my father, good at hitting the ball very well with both feet. That was one of the bonuses. Anywhere the ball came, I could strike it well and on target. That was a real plus for me.
Yes, I mean, this is the remarkable thing about how phlegmatic you were in front of goal. So at that moment, when you get the ball, do you completely relax? Is there any stress? What are you thinking at that moment?
Thinking very simply to get a good strike on the ball, hit it with a lot of power. I look at some of the players to play up front today, and they try and screw the ball in with the inside of the foot, and the goalkeeper drops his cap on it. And they think, why didn't you hit the ball? Just strike the ball well with both feet. You've got a much better chance of scoring. That was one of my. And of course, I wasn't bad in the air because I played at the back at school. I played in midfield, so heading was also something I was pretty good at, as that caption shows there. I was pretty good. But hitting the target, it's important, very important. How often you see players who hit the ball and it goes wide or over the top, and everybody goes, whoa. But you just hit the target, you've got a much better chance of A, scoring, or B, it ricocheting off the keeper to one of your teammates.
It's remarkable stuff. So you booked your place in the squad of the World Cup for England in 1966, but you had no reason to believe that either England would win or that you would be so integral in that victory, Sir Geoff.
Not at all, because I didn't start the tournament, as many people understand. I always joke that Alf Ramsey started off with those two very average players, Jimmy Greaves and Spurs, and Roger Hunt, two of the great strikers, Roger, of course, and Liverpool. I didn't play particularly well in the pre-World Cup warm-ups in Scandinavia and finally in Poland. And he started off with Roger and Jimmy. And at that stage, I sat on the bench in the first game. There were no subs in those days. But I'd tell you what my feeling was. I wasn't disillusioned or disappointed. I was happy to be. I never thought I'd ever play for England. Absolutely. It was never on my radar at all. But looking back, very easy retrospectively, I feel with my goal scoring I talked about earlier, I should have been playing for England maybe 3 years earlier. But sitting on the bench in the first game against Uruguay, I was just happy to be in the 22 men that were involved in a World Cup in England, which was absolutely fantastic. So some people, some characters, some players get a bit disillusioned if they get dropped or don't get picked, but that was never on my radar. So I was ready when the opportunity came, very sadly for Jimmy, who damaged his shin, at the quarter-final stage. I was still ready and keen, and came in and made an immediate impact at the quarter-final, of course, semi-final and the final. And that was about your attitude, a positive attitude, not getting disillusioned. And that's a human natural nature thing, where if things don't go for you, you can lose a bit of focus. But that certainly wasn't the case for me. I was ready to go when I got my chance, somewhat fortuitously after Jimmy's injury.
Yes, it's a squad game, and you were ready with that positive mentality. And the rest is history, Sir Geoff. Can you remember your emotions on the morning of the World Cup final in 1966?
I think people talk a lot about emotions. I mean, I was just keyed up. Ron Greenwood, who was my great coach and manager at West Ham, when I got involved with the national team, he said, we talked about preparation, he said, just prepare the way you prepare at the club. You're successful at the club. What we do at the club is successful for you and the team. So just prepare the same way. We had dinner at 12 o'clock, the usual. And I don't think I think probably at that stage I was a little more confident. I got back, of course, at the quarter-final stage. I made an impact scoring the winner, and then making the winner against Portugal, the second goal for the great Bobby Charlton. So then I felt I was disappointed not to start, but felt I was really coming back into form in the quarter-final and semi-final. So I was really, and the first goal I scored against Germany, I had this stupid celebration where I jumped up with both my knees in the air. I look at it now, like it looks an absolutely stupid thing, but it was just a gesture and a feeling. I'm back. It didn't start, but I'm back. I'm confident. I'm scoring goals, playing like I know I can play. And that was my stupid celebration after scoring that first goal from a free kick on Bobby Moore.
Nothing stupid about anything you did that way that day, Sir Geoff. What about the final whistle? They think it's all over. There's a player on the pitch. It is now. Your emotions at that moment?
Your first emotion when the ball goes in, and I mean, you just mentioned the commentary. The commentary is fantastic. I challenge anybody that can watch that game today and come up with a better final line than Kenneth Wilson. It was absolutely fantastic. Remarkable. And of course, they think it's all over. Is now part of our everyday language, isn't it? It's just unbelievable. Your first emotion, obviously not starting it, but getting and winning it, and the ball goes in and the referee blows, is one of relief. Your first emotion is one of relief that you've got through it, you've won it against a very great German side after those the 3 games I played. But the enjoyment, of course, simply lasts forever.
And that joy and that enjoyment is shared by the entire nation. And I can only thank you for the pride and joy that you and that team gave to this country and continue to do, Sir Geoff. I've got some fantastic questions from my viewers who are loving every second of this, I've got to say. And I'm really
Have they been phoning? Have they been?
Yes,
go on. Have they been phoning you and telling you?
Well, they have. They've been pinging. Basically, my laptop is pinging away. We'll never get through all of the messages, but let's have a go. Jeffrey on Twitter, Sir Geoff, asks, what's the biggest regret in your career?
Good question. Biggest regret. In fact, strangely enough, I talked about it briefly with my wife tonight. I raised that subject. That's quite, whatever the word is. My biggest regret is probably leaving West Ham, but they'd indicated they wanted to sell me. I've been a bit young and a bit lacking experience. Because they wanted me to go, I decided, yes, if you don't want me, I'm going to go. But I look back and thinking I could have had another 2 or 3 years there, another 100 goals and another 30-odd goals, 100 games, 30 goals, which is what I had at Stoke. So I regret that decision leaving West Ham. Although my career is fantastic, as you said, 500 games, 242 goals. It would have been nice to be even a bit longer with the Hammers, because they gave me a chance from school. And it's a club, of course, I still support and love. But so that's really the biggest regret. Probably the only really I've had by leaving West Ham too early, although they pushed me.
Yeah, well, I completely understand that, but obviously, you are an absolute legend at West Ham and always will be, Sir Geoff. A political question from Victor on Twitter. It's one of the hot topics of the moment in the context of football, but of course it's not about the game. Victor wants to ask you, should a player take the knee to support his teammates regardless of the politics or the crowd booing?
The simple answer to that is yes. I'm not into politics, but I'm just looking at that, and I see that every week. I'm surprised that an element of the crowd are booing, although that seems to be not quite so strong now. I think that it's such a serious issue for all our lives, Black Lives Matter, and anything high-profile players and teams can do to show their disgust about what happens with Black lives. I fully support that, and I think the short answer is definitely yes. They should take the knee.
Meanwhile, Sir Geoff, let's get to a question from Paul, who has emailed the show. Paul, thank you very much for your question. What are your thoughts on the money now being paid to footballers? Has football sold its soul? What do you think about money in the game, Sir Geoff?
Well, it hasn't. I wouldn't say it sold its soul. That's what the going rate is for professional players. And my view is good luck to them. I came from the medieval times when my first wage was £7 a week, and my signing on fee at West Ham was £20. And I say good luck to the players. Some, I think, probably, if you argue that some of the inflated salaries for the top players, if you're the top in your profession and that's what it's paid, acting, actors get $12, $15 million a film. They're great entertainers. And the top players, I think at the bottom end of it, there's players earning probably who are not maybe as talented, maybe not as dedicated, still earning, in a question, silly money, but that's going to happen in the game anyway. So I don't use the term sold their soul. That's what the top players get. That's what the profession get. It's a gigantic profession now. The Premier League worldwide, it's the biggest, strongest, most attractive league in the world for me. And that's what the great players are earning. So, and good luck to them.
I couldn't agree with you more. They generate income, therefore they deserve a share of it. Final question. It's all we've got time for, but it's another brilliant question. So thanks so much for all of your emails and tweets. This is from Finley on Twitter, who asks, which 5 players would you have picked to shoot penalties at the Euro 2020 final?
Well, this is a question I'm reluctant to answer, because once the game happened and the penalties were missed, I vowed there was going to be some criticism, obviously, of what happened with the people that picked it. And I have said I would not going to get involved to be any negative at all about England's performances throughout the tournament, including the final. So I refuse to answer that question on the basis I do not want to be negative about the team. Gareth Southgate has been fantastic. The team have been fantastic. Semi-final in 2018, the finals of the Euros against a very, very good Italian side. So I'm not. I normally answer most questions. That one is a question I vowed I would not get involved on the politics of being critical of the national team. They were fantastic. It was a great tournament.
I completely agree with you. And frankly, who would want to be placed in that position of taking the penalty? And to me, they're all heroes for having been so brave and volunteering to do that, because I wouldn't do that, Sir Geoff, in a million years. And, here's hoping for World Cup glory next time round. And, of course, it's an excellent squad. In a couple of years' time, here's hoping. Here's a quick one. I don't know if you've still got it, Sir Geoff, but I believe that you owned or do own quite a special car with a special number plate. Is that right?
Yes. Well, the number plate is... I've messed around with number plates over the years. Yes, that's the car. And I decided to sell it. I've changed my mind on the car. But the number plate, I've had a few number plates, and I've still got one apart from that. So, yes, it's a fairly special number plate, but I do have a few playing around with them over the years, and I've got one or two left, so I decided I would sell the car and sell that number plate. And if the car, but I'm not sure. I'm selling it because I've changed my mind on the car. That's
well, I
the
tell you
thing.
what, whatever. I mean, you could be driving a bin lorry, and if it had 1966 on it, you could drive it with pride, because any memory of that occasion.
Strangely enough, the car's not sold at the moment.
There you go. Well, look, the bids will start coming in. I'm sure of that. Now, Geoff.
Yes, I was going to say that.
Go on.
Go on.
No, please. There's no way I'm going to interrupt a Knight of the Realm.
I beg your pardon. Sorry. I was going to say that the car, as yet, is not sold. It's not a big issue one way. But one or two people have indicated they would like the number plate. So I may separate the two in a week or two, possibly.
That's fantastic. I mean, if somebody did want to bid, because I'm sure there would be a flurry of people that would love that number plate. Have you got any idea how they could bid?
I think we left a email address on the. So very simply, just go to it's my wife's email address. That's Judith752@btinternet.com. I didn't think I'd be on tonight, Mark, trying to sell a number plate. That wasn't what I expected to be talking about tonight. But since you brought the subject up, Judith752@btinternet.com.
It's done. I'm pretty sure that the bidding will go a bit crazy now, Sir Geoff. Honestly, I'm truly privileged to have had you on the show, and what memories you've brought. Really, final quick thought. I understand that you would actually donate your brain to science because you're very concerned about the potential link between heading the football and dementia. And we've seen many high-profile cases of some true football legends who appear to have been impacted in terms of their cognitive health from heading the ball in football.
Yes, I've been involved with the Alzheimer's Society for some time and involved in many discussions about the heading of the ball. And a couple of things I said very, very quickly. From my experience, one of the serious issues is the amount of heading you do at club level. In practice, we had a ball hanging from the ceiling at West Ham where we could spend half an hour, 45 minutes heading a ball. Then you go on the pitch, and West Ham developed the near post cross very famously, and the amount of practice the team took, the amount of time you head a ball on the pitch. If you look at some of the games I played, I probably only had the ball 3 or 4 times. So 2 things I think I've recommended. One, they cut the practice out a lot. And 2, the other thing is 10-year-olds, where the brains aren't formed, stopping them heading a ball at 10 years and under. And in fact, in the USA, their federation, they've actually stopped young boys in the States heading a ball from 10 and under, which is just a figure I picked out purely with no experience at all. So that's a couple of things I think that that could be done immediately. But there obviously there seems to be an issue. I think there's a guy called Willie Stewart, done a lot of research, and professional players are 3.5 times more likely to suffer dementia than the guy in the street. But it's very hard to look at that from a scientific point of view, because heading a ball definitely has an impact, a lot of it, on later life. But people could argue, many people suffer dementia and Alzheimer's and things of that condition who've never kicked a football, never played football. So it's a very complex issue, but there's certainly a much stronger feeling now. Much more science is needed, that certainly heading a ball a lot can have an impact on later life.
So Geoff Hurst MBE, thank you so much for joining us on GB News.